What's going on, everybody? Hope you're having a good day, and I hope you're having a good week as always. Just letting you guys know, if you're in the Los Angeles area in September, I'm putting on a live event. VIP tickets are almost sold out. Please come. We're hoping to sell the venue out. We'll see if it happens. Make America Debate again. We're doing a health debate, a finance debate. We're having a town hall, a comedian. I'm going to talk. You can ask me questions. It's going to be a very awesome time, and it will be a nonpartisan, not really political event, although you could ask any questions you'd like. Please come out if you're in the area. And the two stories I really want to talk about today, I really want people to listen because I got a lot of backlash on a post. I talked about Ilhan Omar. So I want to explain to the right wing, especially conservatives, but everybody, the right wing is being played by Ilhan Omar. You're letting your hate and your emotion blind yourself, and they're actually passing anti-free speech laws on the back of Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative. If you're not even conserving free speech in this country, what are you really conserving? That's one of the cornerstones of being a conservative and a right-winger, and that's not happening. And every time I try to explain it, people say, where's the proof? How dare you? You're terrible. So this video, I'm going to show total proof of exactly what I'm talking about, how almost no Republicans are talking about it, and how they're using Ilhan Omar to distract you from what's been happening for decades in this country that has nothing to do with her. She's not the beginning of the problem. She's a symptom of a problem that's been growing for decades. Please listen. Please consider what I'm saying. Please don't be hateful and emotional. Listen if you really care about free speech in America. This is the discussion you're going to want to hear. Second thing I want to talk about today is the Dayton shooter apparently had drugs, alcohol, and pharmacy drugs in his system. There's a certain trend going on with these situations that nobody wants to talk about. We're going to talk about it here. So I'm going to get right into this bill. I keep saying that Republicans are selling out your free speech, that Ilhan Omar is being used as a shield to sell out your free speech, and everyone keeps saying, I want to see proof, show proof. I agree with you. I should be showing proof, and this is the full proof. So this is Ron DeSantis' bill that he took to take aim at anti-Semitism. It was actually the first Florida bill that was signed on foreign soil. Never has there been an American Floridian bill signed on foreign soil, but Ron DeSantis went to Israel and signed this bill to take aim against anti-Semitism. Let's look at the bill. The proposal will add religion as a protected class when it comes to discrimination against student and employees. That's what it says. Currently, people are protected from discrimination based on race, ethnicity, national origin, gender, marital status, or disability. The legislation lays out examples of what would be considered anti-Semitism, including making mendacious, dehumanizing, demonizing, or stereotypical allegations about Jews or the power of Jews as a collective, such as the myth about a world Jewish conspiracy or of Jews controlling media, economy, government, or other societal institutions. So all that's considered anti-Semitism as a law now, not just an opinion. Let's see what else. The bill, HB 741, also defines anti-Semitism as accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide than to the interest of their own nations. So now it's illegal by law in certain situations to speculate or to suggest that certain Jewish people in the world have other interests besides the nation that they currently live in. The measure will also ban certain speech against the state of Israel on campuses, such as applying a double standard to Israel by requiring behavior of Israel that is not expected or demanded of any other democratic nation, or focusing peace or human rights investigations only on Israel. So now this is a law that was passed on foreign soil, on the books, that says in certain situations it's illegal to criticize Israel more than other countries. So most Republicans, notably the most famous ones that have big organizations such as Turning Point USA, Prager University, and Ben Shapiro at Daily Wire, constantly criticize other countries 100%, such as Iran and others, and 0% Israel, and say that any sort of critiques and criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic. If you don't agree with that, you're anti-Semitic, you're anti-Semitic. So they're allowed to be 100% critical of certain countries, 0% critical of Israel, but you are not allowed to do the opposite of that. So now the state of Florida, in certain situations, can legally, by law, tell you who you're allowed to criticize, when you're allowed to criticize them, if it's enough that you're not criticizing other people as much as you're criticizing that. And that's not even the end to this anti-free speech, extremely, extremely, extremely broad bill. You're going to want to listen because a group of Jewish Floridians hammer the anti-Semitism bill and call for a veto. So you can't say it's anti-Semitic to oppose this anti-Semitism bill because some of the biggest opponents of it are actually Jewish. A group of more than 30 Jewish Floridians wrote to Governor Ron DeSantis on Tuesday saying the anti-Semitism bill heading to his desk goes beyond what is appropriate. Signatures of the letter, which include constitutional lawyer Alan Levine, prominent Miami lawyer Benjamin Waxman, and 2 rabbis among others, urges the governor to veto the bill. While HB 741 is to be commended for adding religion to the prohibited categories of discriminating in the existing law, as Jewish Floridians, we strongly object on 2 grounds to those provisions of the bill relating to anti-Semitism. First, the bill offers some examples of anti-Semitism that do not relate to anti-Semitism, but instead to criticism of the state of Israel. Second, the proposal identifies anti-Semitism and only anti-Semitism as an example of religious discrimination, the letter states. So they claim that they're adding religious discrimination to the law of schools, but only for Jewish people, not for Christians, not for Catholics, not for Muslims, not for Sikhs, not for Hindus, not for Buddhists, not for Taoists, for no one. Only for Jewish people. But not just for Jewish people in a sense that actually makes sense, in such a broad sense that literally the government can decide when you're criticizing too much, when you're not criticizing equally enough, when you're criticizing at all. How is this conservative? How is this conserving free speech? How is this equality? It's not. And thank goodness this group of Jewish Floridians pointed it out. It's ridiculous. We're adding religious discrimination for one group, and it's not really going to make sense, and your religion's not involved, but it's totally anti-Semitic to disagree with me now. Kind of like how Ben Garrison got disinvited to the White House for criticizing the Rothschilds or George Soros. So conservatives only seem to like free speech and free cartoons. Until you disagree with the mainstream conservatives, then all of a sudden they're anti-free speech and anti-cartoon. Doesn't make sense. So how did the press treat these Jewish Americans who actually care about free speech? Let's look. There are 700,000 Jews in Florida. The fact that 32 don't want to ensure their own children and grandchildren be protected in school is disappointing, but not news. So they get smeared just like anybody else. The group who wrote DeSantis stated that they have a wide variety of views concerning Israel, but are united in 2 beliefs: that anti-Semitism and criticism of Israel should not be conflated, and those who criticize Israel have a constitutional right to do so. So this opposes most mainstream conservatives, like I told you, the PragerUs, the Ben Shapiros, who constantly argue that anti-Zionism, or being opposed to the state of Israel, is actually anti-Semitism in itself. So my question is, why did conservatives not take a closer look at this bill? Well, the answer is Ilhan Omar. They use Ilhan Omar and say, oh my God, she's so bad. She hates America. She hates Israel. She's an anti-Semite. She's an anti-Semite. We have to work with Ted Cruz to condemn her and pass condemnations. And there's so much smoke around there. It's easy for them to say, look, Ilhan Omar, she's bad, right? You don't like her. Look, look, look. Let's pass this totally not equal religious bill that only favors one religion, burdens other religion, and basically protects a foreign country from any sort of normal criticism that even America's allowed to get. Any other race, any other religion, you're allowed to say that they have influence or power. The media is constantly propagating an anti-white narrative that white people control and own everything, and if you disagree, you're racist, sexist, xenophobic, or a supremacist. But that's fine. And I live in America, so free speech is allowed, but apparently only in certain directions for certain religions, and in others, you can't even have normal, fair criticism if we determine as the government it's not equal to what we want you to say. No thanks, I'll pass in the United States of America. Most conservatives don't even realize that this stuff's being passed, because most mainstream conservative pundits will never tell you, because they're so pro-Israel that they will literally take away your First Amendment or start a fake regime change war in the Middle East telling you that there's some sort of American value to it. And if you disagree with them, they'll often call you an anti-Semite, even if you're a Jewish lawyer or a rabbi. This kind of reminds me when George Bush was president and who said, Osama bin Laden, let's go get him. And all Republicans said, oh, Americans, yeah, we got to get Osama bin Laden. And I remember growing up, people used to say, oh yeah, he's hiding in a cave, he's hiding in a cave. Little did they know that he was a Saudi Arabian billionaire from a very, very wealthy family, and that the last time I checked, billionaires don't live in caves. But for some reason, Republicans have such a disdain towards certain people that they're blinded from all sort of emotion and logic. And the craziest part about this is, I understand that you would be opposed to radical Islamic terrorism. I totally understand. But it's the same pundits who say, we're against radical Islamic terrorism, who lie you into fake regime change wars in Syria, who who tell you that you're going for American interests and we need to fight, 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 get rid of this leader, get rid of this leader, that creates a refugee crisis that then brings people with the radical Islamic terror ideology to Europe, to Canada, and to the United States of America. So the same dishonest liars who tell conservatives we're fighting radical Islamic terror don't even let you know that your taxpayer dollars are funding two sides of the wars. Rebels in Syria and Libya, who many say are radical jihadi terrorists themselves. Then they create a refugee crisis there that didn't exist. Syria is actually secular. Before there was a big crisis and after there's a big crisis, they actually treat Christians very well there. But due to the misinformation, the disinformation, the dishonest media, the dishonest liberal media, and yes, the fake, dishonest, conservative media that tells you we're so much different and better than libtards, they lie you into these situations. They create a refugee crisis. The refugees then go all over the place, and then they continuously just fight for more war. War with Iran now, war, war, war. Even though they don't even analyze properly to let you know that your taxpayer dollars might be actually funding that jihadist, Wahhabist, radical ideology. And I know that it may come to a shocker as many, because they're like, well, I go to these events with all these Republicans and they tell me how great they are and how much they want to stand up for free speech and the Second Amendment and they're so conservative. But I have a very rude awakening. As somebody who does love the modern conservative movement, you're being lied to and misled. And if you point out that modern day conservatives aren't actually conserving anything, people freak out and get mad at me, but I don't really care. And I had a very long conversation with my Orthodox Jewish friend Andrew Meyer to explain how overusing the word anti-Semitism is actually creating more disdain for Israel and more disdain for the Jewish people. I made a whole video about it the other day that people didn't understand, explaining the more you lie about this stuff, the more you have special privileges in Florida and other places, the more you exaggerate certain terms like racist, sexist, xenophobe, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, the more disdain it actually creates for everybody. But in this particular case, Israel and the Jewish people. It's just true. If you don't believe me, I'm going to show you something that might be disturbing to people who only go to Turning Point and CPAC and PragerU and think that they have the full story of how popular their ideology really is. This is a rude awakening. It's actually not as popular as you think. It's growing more and more unpopular because of what I'm saying, because they've exaggerated, they've overdone it, and they're leading people to other leaders. Here's a recent PragerU video where they said, Israel has given the world so much: democracy, religious tolerance, free press, independent judiciary, valuable trade, technological innovation, leadership against terrorism, and more. You should be supporting Israel. Learn why now. You can see that this video has 312 retweets and 749 likes. Keep in mind, I have friends with Prager University. They've always been nice to me. It's nothing but love for me. But PragerU is a pretty big organization. They run more ads than any organization I've ever seen. 312, 749. Let's go to somebody who's very, very controversial and not welcome at these Turning Point type events. Nick Fuentes. I think he's like a 20-year-old kid. I'm not quite sure. He says, Israel has murdered our sailors, spied on our citizens, bribed our Congress, lied us into costly wars, stolen classified American intel, sold our military tech to China, taken billions of taxpayer dollars, stolen our nuclear weapons tech. Why does any American still support Israel? And you'll notice he only said this a couple hours ago. He has 869 retweets and 2.8 thousand likes. Way more than PragerU in way less time. So you're starting to realize what I've been trying to warn people for months. By misusing the word anti-Semitism so much, passing these type of bills, not allowing people to question, not allowing people to come to events and say, hey, I love this, I agree with this, I agree with this, but I'm a little bit critical of this foreign policy or this ideology. They've kind of pushed these people into a corner, and now that movement's growing bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, even bigger than the mainstream conservative movement. I'm not saying that Twitter's a proper gauge of everything, but trust me, it's growing. And when I point out this type of stuff, people scream at me and say, you're this, you're that, you're the other, you're that. I'm none of the sort. Ilhan Omar is not the cause of all the world's problems. She's a symptom of the problem. Hating her and expecting things to change is like hating Donald Trump and expecting things to change. He didn't build the cages for the kids. The Obama administration did. He didn't start any of these crises. They've been around for decades. He's just the only one talking about them. With Ilhan Omar, she's what you get when you have this, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer as Democratic leadership and Hillary Clinton and all these others lead to Ilhan Omar, AOC, Donald Trump. That's what you get. So attacking her and not even knowing that your taxpayer dollars are funding two sides of the wars and radical Islamic terrorism, and it's expanding because nobody can figure out the root of it, it doesn't make you conservative, as Republicans are using her as a shield to pass anti-free speech legislation, and there's nothing anti-Semitic about opposing it when the biggest opposers of the bill were Jews themselves. And Dennis Prager and Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro, I appreciate what they're doing. I think they have a lot of value, and I'm very appreciative of the truth and logic that they spread. However, their obsession with calling everybody anti-Semites, everything anti-Semitic, not telling you about anti-free speech legislation, not really being logical and factual when it comes to Israel, it's all emotion, and if you disagree with us, you're an anti-Semite. I mean, it's so ridiculous. They said that it's all about the Benjamins, which is a rap lyric talking about it's all about the money. They say that's an anti-Semitic conspiracy. Guess what? The whole world runs on money. Everybody knows it. The world runs on money. There's nothing anti-Semitic about it. The United States sells weapons to Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia has the money to buy them, and their allies probably because of money. That's not Islamophobic to say. The United States, Saudi Arabia, they're powerful countries, among other things, money. So the more that Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro and Dennis Prager just say Israel, 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 Ilhan Omar, Ilhan Omar, Ilhan Omar, Ilhan Omar, Ilhan Omar, and ignore anti-free speech legislation, ignore the reality of these regime change wars and how costly they are on the world, ignore that criticism or skepticism or pointing out trends and statistics or facts, saying that that's somehow racist and anti-Semitic, it's not actually helping Israel, and it's not actually helping Jewish people. And I'm actually a nice person. I could sit here and be mean and angry and mad and lie and cry and scream. I don't do that though. I'm not a mean person. I don't want good people of any race, religion, or gender or ethnicity to get hurt. I'm not overly prideful of my heritage or ethnicity. Honestly, I really don't care. I stand up for all good people in the world as much as I possibly can with my platform. And there's no exceptions there. No race, no religion, no gender. However, people need to realize how unpopular it's getting, how costly it's becoming on America, and how there's nothing conservative about what conservatives are doing. So that's the point of this video. Check out that legislation, how it's religious legislation that only deals with one religion in such a broad and unhonest way that many Jewish people in Florida opposed it. And Ilhan Omar is not the cause of all the world's ills. I have some rude awakening to tell you. Our food industry has been sold out and corrupt. Our medicine industry is sold out and corrupt. Our politics on both sides are sold out and corrupt. Our mainstream media is sold out and corrupt. The tech companies are sold out and corrupt. This has been happening for decades, has nothing to do with Ilhan Omar, and the more you run in circles acting like you're such a good American for just screaming and opposing her, the more Ilhan Omars you're actually gonna get. Then there's going to be 2 Ilhan Omars and 5 Ilhan Omars and 10 Ilhan Omars and 100 Ilhan Omars, and you're going to be punching around trying to stop it, and it's never going to stop. It's like slapping at a leaf and thinking you're going to knock a tree down. You have to get to the root of the problem or it's never going to change. So the more you attack Ilhan Omar and the more these false idol conservatives tell you to attack Ilhan Omar, but don't actually tell you the full story about what's going on in the world or in this country, the more unhealthy people are going to get, the more sick people are going to get, the more Ilhan Omars you're going to get, because she's not the root of the problem. And some of these conservatives that are telling you to hate her are responsible for people like Ilhan Omar to even be in power in the first place. So get to the core of your country and how almost every industry is not working for American interests at all. If you trace, like I just said, all of the industries I named before, look at what they're doing, look at their reporting, look at the food, look at the medicine, look at all sides of it without being a conspiracy theorist. And for me, it's hard to come to a conclusion that they're serving the people or serving the best interests of this country. I mean, it's so bad. American food in other countries is actually healthy and normal, and that same food in our country is destructive and disgusting. Seems like a bigger problem than Ilhan Omar existing in Congress or trying to take a trip to Israel or Palestine. I mean, you could be mad and just scream at her and say F her and think you're gonna change something, but it's not true. And I'm sure there's many conservatives who won't tell you that your free speech is slowly getting taken away. Interestingly enough, a lot of those same Republicans are the ones talking about red flag laws. There seems to be a pattern going on. Red flag laws, oh, it's okay, we support it. Anti-free speech legislation that they don't tell you about or they write and sign themselves, and regime change wars. Let's start another war like Syria and Libya because they weren't costly enough. You can let them tell you it's for Americans' best interest, but most people realize it's not, and that movement is growing on the left and the right. So, as always, you're free to have your own perspective and disagree with me. I hope you do have your own perspective, but like I warned the mainstream conservative movement about months ago, the truth and reality doesn't really care if you don't want to accept it. Moving on, this headline came out recently. Suspected Dayton shooter had cocaine, alcohol, and anti-anxiety drugs in his system, coroner said. Of course, cocaine is illegal, alcohol is legal, and anti-anxiety drugs are legal. And it's just interesting that this is coming out now. I don't know if you're really supposed to say this. I know they try to ruin your life, but instead of Dan Crenshaw and Republicans like that trying to make a video telling you why red flag laws might make sense, why don't they do some studies and statistic about how many mass shooters have been on these anti-anxiety or psychotropic drugs that alter your mind and numb the pain, like Marianne Williamson tried to say, so they tried to ruin her on CNN and others. Why don't they do a study into that? Because if you look at guns in America, they've always existed. In the past, even less regulations and laws, no metal detectors, none of that stuff existed, and there were virtually no problems like that. And then all of a sudden, you start introducing the degeneracy of our culture, you start introducing self-hatred, you start breaking up the family, you start confusing men and women into who they are or if they're allowed to even be themselves, and you start diagnosing every single human behavior as some sort of disorder that you need to shove mind-numbing pills down your throat, and then mass shootings start happening more frequently. And then if you research how many of them were on some sort of these drugs, I don't know if there's a full study, but I'll give you a hint. Quite a lot. Parkland shooter, this shooter, do the research yourself. And for somebody that they tried to say had ADHD, when I didn't, I'm just creative and I didn't want to sit in a little prison school cell where they just talked for 9 hours and I had to sit in a desk. I didn't need ADHD medicine. It's basically like cocaine that lasts for 9 hours. It's insane that they give this stuff to kids. They're overprescribing it. I don't even think that's debatable. Some people might need it, but overprescription, that's obvious. And I've never experimented with all these other anti-anxiety drugs that they're giving kids, but God knows what they're doing to their mind. God knows what they're doing to their body. Taking Adderall was like 9 hours of cocaine filled with 2 days of feeling like a zombie and down and sweating. It's insane that they just prescribe this to millions of people. So I would love if some of the conservatives who want to pass legislation that's never going to help you and just take away your free speech and Second Amendment like Republicans keep doing. I'm not saying this stuff to be edgy or mean or try to ruin somebody's feelings or support for the president. I don't care who you support. I'm just saying it seems like Democrats sell your rights out quickly and Republicans sell your rights out slowly, and they never get to the root of the issues. And it could be one of 50 million things. I'm not blaming the entire pharmacy industry or prescription pills, but like I said, with family, culture, mentality, media, mental health, technology, and the overprescription of pills, you add all that together, it's a recipe for disaster. And I don't think it should be edgy or controversial to say that. And it's only edgy and controversial because most mass media either doesn't care, isn't smart enough to figure it out, or is taking so much money from these industries that they don't want to figure it out. Or, perhaps even worse, they don't actually care about American citizens. Maybe a combination of all of them, I have no idea. But you could figure it out yourself. I just wanted to say that. Thank you for listening. Thank you for considering what I said. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. I hope that this video, if you are conservative or liberal or left-wing, I don't really care, but especially conservatives, you needed to hear this about Ilhan Omar and these bills being passed, and the fact that the mainstream conservative, even Donald Trump, strategy and method of Israel, 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 anti-Semite, 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 is actually not helping Jewish people, and it's not helping stop anti-Semitism. You can't just ban it out of existence and shut everybody up and silence them and block them and write speech laws against them. That sounds like what the left wing does when you make common sense that they don't want to hear because they perceive it as hateful or mean. I mean, you can't be that big of a hypocrite, or you can and lose a lot of support. So I don't want that to happen. I want everyone to come to a conclusion, have conversations, talk, end the wars, peace in the Middle East. That sounds great. Every race, religion, and gender living in harmony. I'm not saying it's possible, but at bare minimum, stop acting like Ilhan Omar is the beginning of all America's problems. It's like you're going to have 50 Ilhan Omars in a couple of years, and you're going to be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Get to the root of the problem, really understand what's going on, have a conversation, Don't allow your hatred for somebody that you're allowed to dislike and think that they do dislike America and Israel. You're allowed to do that. But don't pass anti-free speech legislation and follow false idols just because they play into your emotions in that. That's literally how they started the wars in the Middle East. They said, look at this guy. Said he's hiding in a cave when he was a billionaire from Saudi Arabia. And then they invaded 4 other countries that had nothing to do with it. And we still sell weapons to that country. Wake up time, guys. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America, God bless the world, and God bless everybody of every race, religion, and gender, all the good people, and pray for all the people that are not so great, to be uplifted. I don't wish harm or negativity on anybody. I just wish for good energy, good vibes, and, we could all get on an elevated level, hopefully. God bless you. Thank you, guys, and have a good one.